Chosen one. There is a kind of prayer you only pray when nobody is watching. Not in front of people, not in a crowd, not when you're trying to sound strong. It's the prayer that comes out when the door is closed, when your back is against the wall, and when the weight of everything you've been carrying becomes too heavy to hold any longer. And for some of you, that place was the shower. Because that's where the mask came off. That's where the strong version of you finally got tired. That's where the tears fell without explanation. That's where you whispered the words you couldn't say anywhere else. God, I'm tired. God, I don't understand. God, how much longer? God, please, help me. And maybe you thought that moment meant you were breaking. Maybe you thought it meant your faith was weak. Maybe you thought nobody heard you. But hear me clearly, chosen one. That prayer was heard. Not ignored. Not delayed by accident. Not lost in your pain. Heard. And if this message has found you right now, then you need to understand something powerful. That prayer you cried in the shower has finally been answered. Something has shifted. Something has opened. Something has already begun moving in your favor, even if you cannot fully see it yet. Because the truth is, heaven often starts working before your eyes ever catch up. And that is where many people get discouraged. They think because they can't see it, nothing is happening. They think because the pain hasn't disappeared overnight, their prayer wasn't answered. They think because life still looks confusing on the outside, God must still be silent. But chosen ones are rarely given instant confirmation. You are usually asked to trust before you see. To walk before the evidence appears. To believe while the room is still dark. And that is exactly why your season has been so difficult. Because your faith was not being punished. It was being built. You were not being abandoned. You were being prepared. You were not being overlooked. You were being separated. And there is a difference. Because when you are chosen, your life does not unfold the same way as everyone else's. For other people, things may come easy. For other people, the path may look straight. For other people, support may come quickly. But for you, the road has felt heavier, longer, more isolating, more confusing. You've had to fight battles that nobody knew you were fighting. You've had to smile in rooms where your soul was exhausted. You've had to keep going when your heart wanted to collapse. And what made it even harder was this. You were there for people who were never really there for you. You poured into others while running on empty. You kept showing up even when nobody asked if you were okay. You carried pain quietly. You carried disappointment silently. You carried heartbreak with dignity. And then one day, under running water, away from everyone, the truth finally came out. You couldn't hold it in anymore. That wasn't weakness. That was release. That was the moment your soul stopped performing. That was the moment your spirit got honest. And let me tell you something most people do not understand. There is something deeply powerful about an honest prayer. Not a polished prayer, not a perfect prayer, not a religious performance wrapped in fancy words. An honest prayer. The kind that comes from the deepest part of your pain. The kind that says, I don't know what to do anymore. The kind that says, I need you to step in because I have reached my limit. The kind that comes with tears. The kind that comes with trembling. The kind that comes when pride is gone, ego is broken, and all you have left is truth. That is the prayer that shakes things loose. That is the prayer that opens heaven. That is the prayer that moves what has been stuck. And that is why this moment matters. Because what you thought was a breakdown was actually a turning point. You thought you were falling apart. But in reality, you were being emptied of what could not go with you into your next season. Read that again in your spirit. You were being emptied. Of fear. Of false attachments. Of old identities. Of people-pleasing. Of carrying what was never yours to carry. Of trying to force doors that were never meant to open. And yes, it hurt. Because release often hurts before it heals. Letting go hurts before it frees you. Separation hurts before it strengthens you. But what feels like loss in one season becomes protection in the next. And that is what many chosen ones don't realize until later. Some of the things you cried over were actually the very things God was using to save you. The relationship that collapsed. The opportunity that disappeared. The place that rejected you. The people who walked away. The plans that failed. At the time, it felt personal. It felt cruel. It felt confusing. But now you are entering the season where you will begin to understand. The closed door was an answer. The delay was an answer. The discomfort was an answer. The silence was an answer. Because not every answered prayer looks like arrival at first. Sometimes it looks like removal. Sometimes it looks like disconnection. Sometimes it looks like being pulled away from what your flesh wanted so your spirit can receive what your destiny requires. And that is exactly what has been happening in your life. You've been in a season of being pulled away. Away from distractions. Away from counterfeit connections. Away from environments that were draining you. Away from old versions of yourself. Away from habits, thought patterns, and emotional cycles that kept you surviving but never thriving. And because it was unfamiliar, you called it loneliness. But sometimes loneliness is not punishment. Sometimes it is sacred separation. Sometimes you are alone because God is detoxing your life. Sometimes the room gets quiet because too many wrong voices were influencing your next move. Sometimes support disappears because if they stayed, you would keep leaning on people instead of growing in spiritual strength. Chosen one, hear this carefully. You were never forgotten in your lonely season. You were being rebuilt there. That shower prayer was not the beginning of your defeat. It was the announcement of your shift. Because right after the honest cry comes the hidden movement. And hidden movement is still movement. You may not see it, but things are aligning. Conversations are happening that you know nothing about. Opportunities are turning in your direction. Things that seemed blocked are slowly being cleared. The confusion is lifting. The heaviness is breaking. The pressure is producing something in you that comfort never could. And one of the signs your prayer has been answered is this. You are not the same person anymore. You may still be healing, yes. You may still have moments of weakness, yes. You may still have questions, yes. But something in you has changed. You can feel it. You don't tolerate what you used to tolerate. You don't chase what you used to chase. You don't crave shallow validation the way you once did. You're more careful now. More discerning now. More aware now. More spiritually alert now. And that shift did not happen by accident. It happened because pain taught you what comfort never would. Pain taught you who was real. Pain taught you what mattered. Pain taught you where your strength actually comes from. Pain taught you to stop settling. Pain taught you to stop begging to be chosen by people when heaven had already chosen you first. And that is why your next season will be different. Not because everything around you changed overnight, but because you changed. And when the chosen one changes internally, external reality eventually has no choice but to catch up. That means some people will no longer understand you. Let them not understand. That means some doors will no longer fit you. Let them close. That means some places will start feeling uncomfortable. Pay attention, because peace is your confirmation now. Not pressure, not panic, not chasing, not over-explaining. Where there is peace, there is alignment. Where there is constant confusion, there is usually a warning. And one of the greatest answers to your prayer is not just that new things are coming. It is that old things are losing power over you. The trauma is losing its grip. The fear is losing its grip. The rejection is losing its grip. The insecurity is losing its grip. The need to prove yourself is losing its grip. The need to be understood by everyone is losing its grip. That is an answered prayer. Because some miracles do not begin around you. They begin within you. Before the blessing shows up in your hand, it shows up in your spirit. Before the door opens in front of you, Something opens inside of you. Before the breakthrough becomes visible, it becomes internal. And right now, many of you are in that exact place. You are in the inner shift. You are in the spiritual reset. You are in the middle of becoming someone your old life can no longer contain. That is why things feel strange. That is why certain conversations feel forced. That is why old habits don't satisfy you anymore. That is why your spirit has been craving more silence, more truth, more depth, more purpose. You are outgrowing your old world. And outgrowing your old world is uncomfortable because part of you still remembers what it felt like to live there. But you cannot keep shrinking to fit places you have spiritually outgrown. You cannot keep revisiting what broke you just because it feels familiar. You cannot keep doubting what God is doing just because the process feels unfamiliar. The prayer has been answered, but the answer requires your agreement. You have to say yes to the new season. You have to stop calling yourself broken when heaven is calling you rebuilt. You have to stop calling yourself delayed when heaven is calling you prepared. You have to stop calling yourself unlucky when heaven is calling you protected. You have to stop interpreting every hard season as failure. Some seasons are not failure. Some seasons are transition. And transition is messy. Transition confuses the mind before it strengthens the spirit. Transition makes you question everything before it makes sense. Transition often looks like endings until the new beginning finally appears. So if life has felt uncertain, if people have been leaving, if old things have been falling apart, if your soul has been crying out in private, do not panic. You are not being destroyed. You are being repositioned. There is something on the other side of this version of you. A stronger you. A clearer you. A more disciplined you. A more peaceful you. A more powerful you. A version of you that does not panic so easily. A version of you that knows how to hear God without needing constant confirmation from the outside. A version of you that no longer betrays themselves to keep others comfortable. A version of you that can carry what is coming. Because make no mistake, something is coming. Not just more of the same. Not just another cycle. Not just another temporary relief. A real shift. A real opening. A real answer. It may come as unexpected peace. It may come as divine separation. It may come as a new opportunity. It may come as the strength to walk away. It may come as clarity you didn't have yesterday. It may come as restoration. It may come as favor. It may come as the end of something that has been draining you for years. But however it arrives, recognize it. Do not reject the answer because it comes wrapped differently than you imagined. Sometimes you pray for increase, and the answer comes as discipline. Sometimes you pray for peace, and the answer comes as distance from people who steal it. Sometimes you pray for purpose, and the answer comes as isolation so you can finally hear clearly. Sometimes you pray for change, and the answer comes as the collapse of what was comfortable. So stay alert, not fearful. Alert, because your next season will require discernment. Not everyone who reappears deserves access. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every open door is from God. Not every familiar voice should be followed. You have grown too much to return blindly. You have cried too deeply to rebuild the same prison. You have survived too much to settle for what no longer reflects your worth. This is why your shower prayer mattered. Because that was the moment you stopped pretending. And heaven responds to truth. You didn't ask from pride. You asked from surrender. You didn't ask from ego. You asked from pain. You didn't ask from performance. You asked from the deepest chamber of your soul. And that kind of prayer leaves a mark in the spirit. So now, as things begin to move, do not talk yourself out of what you prayed for. Do not let fear make you suspicious of your own blessing. Do not let your old wounds convince you that every good thing will disappear. Do not let yesterday's disappointment define tomorrow's possibility. This is the season to receive, to trust, to stand still when necessary. to move when called, to listen more deeply, to stop forcing, to stop chasing, to stop begging, to stop doubting every quiet miracle just because it didn't come with noise. Because some of the biggest answers arrive gently. A calm mind, a detached heart from what used to control you, a door opening at the right time, a sudden release from anxiety, a clear no where there used to be confusion, a clear yes where there used to be fear. That is movement. That is breakthrough. That is answered prayer. Chosen one, the version of you that entered that shower carrying all that pain is not the same version speaking today. You have already survived nights you thought would break you. You have already made it through moments that looked impossible. You have already been held together by grace when you had nothing left. So now lift your head. Not because every question has been answered yet, but because the prayer has been. Lift your head because what is leaving had to leave. Lift your head because what is meant for you is getting closer. Lift your head because the heaviness is not forever. Lift your head because this season is not your burial. It is your becoming. And when the full answer manifests in front of you, you will understand why certain doors stayed shut. You will understand why certain people had to go. You will understand why the waiting was necessary. You will understand why the tears were not wasted. Nothing was wasted. Not the heartbreak. Not the silence. Not the loneliness. Not the confusion. Not even the shower floor where you stood crying with no words left. None of it was wasted. It was all part of the process that led you here. To this shift. To this message. To this moment. So receive this now with your whole spirit. Your prayer was heard. Your tears were seen. Your breaking point became your turning point. And what you asked for in private is beginning to show up in public. Walk accordingly. Believe accordingly. Guard your peace accordingly. And if this message is confirmation for your spirit, say it now with full faith. I receive what God is doing in my life. Because chosen one, your answer is here.